Hey everyone, and welcome to the August Unity project. This month we're going to be doing TA Super Swing, a first-person platformer. This is going to be a mix-up on the types of mechanics we employ in a first-person game, but we're still going to be using those same first-person building blocks, that being our first-person controller and our first-person camera. Before we get started, we got to do a couple of things here. We want to go up to our top right corner and select this button that says Default or Layout. And we're going to switch to the tall layout. If you've already got the tall layout selected, that's great. But if not, let's go ahead and do that. That's going to get us all on the same, we're looking at the same stuff here and make it a little easier to follow along. All right, so once we got that started, there's a couple of things to point out here. We need to be working inside of our test scene. This scene is going to be where we're building all of our scripts, testing all of our mechanics, but when you go into your scenes folder, which is located in resources, you're actually going to see 5 scenes here. The reason for that is this month we're going to be building a new level every single month, and then we're going to be connecting these levels so that you can play through from level 1 all the way to level 4. We're also going to be doing something a little bit cool, where we're going to give you guys the opportunity to submit each of these levels. You can submit 1 level per person, unless that rule changes. Ask your teacher what the rules we've decided are. But you can submit at least 1 level, and we're going to be judging and selecting 4 out of everybody in the Unity curriculum. And we're going to select those 4 and put them into a final build at the end of the month that you guys can all then get to play. So keep that in mind as you're working through these projects, or this project, I should say, that you are going to have the opportunity to submit these and kind of compete with each other to see who gets to be in that final build. So that being said, we are again going to be working in our test scene for most of the videos. You'll find that at the end of each week, we will then move the stuff we did in that week as far as scripting and making obstacles and stuff. You're going to, at the end of each week, move that into a level and design a custom level on your own. You're also going to have my videos as well, where if you don't want to design your own custom level, you're welcome to just follow along with me and do what I do. But keep in mind that submissions for the contest need to be unique, so we can't just all copy me and then put them in the contest. I want to see everybody kind of, you know, doing their own thing and trying their hardest to be creative in that regard. So let's go ahead and actually get started here. What we need to do first is move into our prefabs folder. We're going to go into structures, and we're going to select base room 8x8. So that should be the second one here. Later on, it won't matter which one we use, but base room 8x8 is good for our testing purposes. And if we click into our scene view, in order to move around, we can right-click in this window, and you'll see this little eyeball gizmo pop up. If we hold that down, we can look around with our mouse and use WASD to move inside the room. Once we're in, we want to make sure the position for this guy is at 0, 0, 0. So we can do that automatically by simply just dragging the prefab up into the hierarchy rather than out into the scene view. If it is for some reason at a position that isn't 0, 0, 0, you can just set that here in the transform component. So now that we've got our base room in, we need to add a couple more things here. We need to add a player capsule. This is going to be the player that we're going to be using. So we're going to hit 3D object, or right click in the hierarchy, select 3D object, and go to capsule. It's going to create a nice little capsule for us. This guy's kind of floating a little bit, so I'm going to just drag him down. We don't want him to be inside the ground, but we want him to be just above it. That looks good to me. Once you've got this guy created, let's go ahead and rename him to player. Now we need to add a rigid body component. We can do that pretty easily by just clicking on this right side here where it says add component and select rigid body. There we go. We want to do a couple of things. We want to freeze our X and Z rotation, as well as the Y rotation. And that's because we are going to be using physics to move our little player around here, but we don't want him to be sliding all over the room and you know, acting in ways that we wouldn't otherwise like. Let's then select our main camera and click and hold and drag this directly on top of our player. You should see this little gray box. surrounding our player when we highlight it. What we just did is we did called parenting our main camera to our player. So our main camera, by doing this, becomes a child of player, our player capsule. And what that means is that wherever our player capsule goes, our camera will follow. So you can kind of see that in the scene view. The camera's moving, but I'm actually moving the player capsule. And this is important because we want the camera to follow the player as we move around. Next, let's select that camera and go back to our transform component. And you see we have some values in X, Y, and Z. We're going to change all three of those to 0. That's going to center the camera on our player's transform. And then we're going to go back to the Y value and change that to 0.5. And you'll see that update in your scene view, and that's going to change our camera positioning to be kind of towards where the head would be if this were an actual person. The last thing we need to do in this step is click outside of our player. We're going to right click and go down to UI and click the canvas option. It's going to create two objects, this event system and the canvas. We can ignore the event system for now. We're going to right click on the canvas directly and select create empty. That's going to create a empty transform that's in the center of our canvas. And a canvas is just a game object that allows us to draw things on our screen. So things like text, or in this case, our crosshair. So let's go ahead and rename this empty game object to crosshair. There we go. We're going to select add component now down here at the bottom, and we're going to type image in there, and then you'll see this image component appear. You'll type it and then hit enter to add it, or you can select it from that drop down menu. Once you've got the image component, there's a little circle button next to the source image field, next to where it says known sprite. Go ahead and click on that and select the knob option. And that's going to create a little image that's just a little circle. And if we actually click in the top left, there's a tab that says game. If we click on that, now we see there's this big circle in the middle of our screen. So what we want to do is scale that down because that's kind of massive. So we're going to change our scale values on all of this to 0.1 and see how that looks. Yeah, I think that's good. So yeah, we'll put that on 0.1 for everything. Finally, what we want to do is select our canvas, go to render mode, UI scale, and we're going to say scale with screen size. And we're going to say reference resolution is 1920 by 1080. There we go. Just to make that look a little nice for us. And then in our game tab, underneath where it says game, there's this little drop down menu that says free aspect. Let's select that and go down to where it says 16 by 9 and do that. This is going to make our game view represent or match the resolution of our monitor, unless you have a different size monitor, but most people have a 16 by 9 and 1920 by 1080 resolution display. Great, so once you've got all of that, don't forget to save your scene, and then you can go ahead and move on to the next step.